Okay. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, anyway, Victor Sui versus Lemmings here. You guys didn't hear any of this. So yeah, Victor Sui versus Lemmings are the best of five in a round of 16. I'm joined by Zuta for his first time casting in a long time. But by the looks of it, we're going to be grinning up into British versus Spain. Again, would be quite surprised if Victor chose this matchup because Spain versus Brit, not the best matchup. Probably one of the worst ones Spain has actually.
Yeah, it's not a great. Truthfully, I don't know meta right now, and so like, especially on Robot Patch or some of the previous patches, I think this is a really hard matchup. At least on a trading post map, which has ample resources, it's probably more playable. Britmere is always going to be balanced, so it doesn't surprise me. Brit is one of Vic's best civs.
Yeah, so I think it's actually Lemmings' main civ as well. So
Okay.
probably the two. You can free Rex in a moment. Obviously, the meme Victor Sweet, which you've at least been proliferating around the forums, is 3 Rex, 700 food. I think 700 food, 6 longbow or something.
Yeah.
Is the build order?
We'll get into the mythical Victor Suit gameplay when we start to witness some of it. But Vic's got a lot of quirky play. You were mentioning, I think, when you were muted, that um, when you played against Vic previously, that he played like an older player, and
Yep.
there are things that Vic does that just like screams like 2005, and he's never really changed his play style. It's like over the course of many years, the game has changed. Right, there have been
Yep.
balance patches, there have been numerous things that have changed about the game. Sometimes it seems like Vic is still playing just straight out of 2005 when we were still kids. So it's always fun for me to watch.
Yeah, I know. I mean, one of the biggest things I can see the difference with, especially for Japanese play. I know you played a lot of Japan back in the day. Nowadays, Japan tends to be sort of quite aggressive in how you play it. But back then, it was very sort of cami heavy build, wasn't it? I think
Yeah,
back to prior
yeah,
like prior in 2015 or something.
yeah. You used to not to with Japan build any military buildings at all until you had maxed out your shrine population. Super common. And really, it was just a testament to the strength of the Japanese economy, how strong shrine booming was.
Yeah.
Certainly not the case anymore.
And I think Ashes were better, and some other stuff where the game
Yeah,
is you were playing on RE patch anyway. Back then, way back then,
that
especially
was totally
probably even
different.
before RE patch actually. Um, RE patch was what 2010, I think. So
Um, yeah, something that they threw in the Steam update patch at some point in time so that it was compatible with like the complete edition on
yeah,
Steam. So there's one like throwaway patch in there that incremented the patch number but didn't really do
change
anything.
anything, yeah. But as for the actual game, Victor Sweet here picking up 40 wood is a bit mirror, so wood is really nice to start with here. You can see he's now even going to transition a villager onto a tree there just to get another house up nice and early. I quite like that. This map quite good for lemmings if he can pick up a lot of these goats, and he has done. He's picked up 4 goats to Victor's only single goat. Of course, you do get a macaque treasure in base, which both players have actually utilised there. Victor Sweet utilising his stride tag there to actually get on top of Matthew Cabot, the lemming explorer. And probably going to try and take that Explorer out, which would be quite nice early on. Lemmings did pick up 30 coin there. A bit of lag. Hopefully it subsides. But yeah, nice start here for Lemmings. And actually a nice start here for Victor. Probably equal. But Lemmings picking up that other goat there. Actually deleting it as well. Quite nice there for Lemmings.
Yeah, it's to me sometimes when you see the deleted goat. Truthfully, I'm a big offender of this as well. Um, it's almost always going to be beneficial if you can walk that goat around with your explorer or keep him close. Because unlike some of the other age games, the goat won't change alliance as long as your
Yep.
explorer is close. There's never any great reason to delete it other than you don't want to deal with it. You just don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, and you can group them together. The only problem you do have with Explorer is the goat's only 4 speed. And yeah, the Explorer's only is actually 4.5 speed. Same with that Macaque. Macaque's 5 speed. And the
Yeah,
Explorer is
and
uh,
that's a good point too,
4.5.
right? Because you wanna be trying to optimize the speed at which you can move around your explorer early game. Interesting. They're saying that the lag is bad.
We could screen share. That helps out, I guess. My internet's good enough. I can put both on, which is nice. But
Yeah,
it did look a little laggy. Of course, Lemmings is in, I believe, in Brazil. Victor being in obviously Sweden, and you're in
yeah.
either Canada or the US. I can't remember.
Yeah, in the U.S. Yeah, so the tricky thing as well is because of the P2P network of
Right.
nature of the connections, I can see how it could maybe be a little bit laggy. Let's see if it gets better here for a minute. If not, then we'll just jump into screen sharing. That's fine too.
Yeah, Victor actually going to be able to see 85 wood here, which once he's got that 40 wood as well earlier on, it's going to become particularly good. He's going to use to utilize that macaque. Obviously, the macaque actually does the same amount of damage as the explorer in hand-to-hand combat. There does 6 with a 1.5 speed and 3x multiplier, the same for it as the explorer. We're going to pick up 85 wood. And Lemmings comparatively to pick up 80 food as well himself. So Lemmings actually, even with that hurt explorer, does pick up some nice treasures. And he's going to scout out 75 food as well. I don't know if he scouted it just yet. He's right next to it. Yeah, hasn't scouted it just yet, but he's going to be, yeah, there you go. Picks it up now. So an extra 75 food will come into his inventory when he gets that crack shot up. But Victor Sweet does actually find another 40 wood as well. So good picking it up, getting in more houses. Both players putting all their villagers, or most of the villagers, to houses now, which is nice. Don't see a market coming up for either player. Actually, a market going up for Victor Sweet. None for Lemmings, notably. But a villager coming forward for Lemmings, actually. And a manor house being built as well.
Yeah, it looks like Lemmings is going to start to forward base. Not super surprising. Oftentimes, in Brit mirrors, you will see players doing some sort of forward base action. Just because hunts are so important with Brits, and when you have 2 Brit players playing on the same map, the speed at which the hunts deplete on the map is very, very quickly. And so, not super surprising to see the forward base action. Also, one thing that I think you just touched on briefly as well, Vic did get 3 wood treasures in transition, and so for civilizations that do tend to boom, especially house boom, whether it's Brit or Jap, those wood treasures really are going to pay dividend in the transition period.
Yeah, absolutely. It basically got an extra mana, and an extra mana for British is a decent chunk of XP there, as well as it's basically allowing you to get more villages up quickly. And obviously, it's exponential, isn't it? The more mana you build, the quicker you get more manas afterwards. And it becomes an increasing cycle. And you actually can see the difference in mana boom here. One player only on 4 manas, that's Victor Sweet there, building his 5th right now, but Lemmings only on 2, so only getting 2 villagers out in transition. Only just getting hunting dogs now. Victor Sweet actually had it basically for the whole of the age 1 to age 2 transition there, which was really nice, adding maybe a couple more tens of food there. But he's going to get up a manor house in mid-map as well. Lemmings, of course, is going to have his sort of forward base up quicker, which is quite important here. I mean, the first batch of units is particularly important in this matchup, but if you can get a batch of 5 musketeers out once that barracks is only just up, you're going to be able to get a decent amount of damage on the barracks already before a batch comes up from the opposing player. But actually both outposts do go forward, but Victor's is quite aggressive here, not in between the sort of towards that stagecoach socket, instead of putting it in between the 2 forward bases. So that might go down, but it also might get a lot of damage off on sort of the batches that come out from Lemmings barracks as soon as a batch of 5 musk comes out.
Yeah, I actually don't mind the tower placement. Effectively, anywhere that Lemmings pops units out, they're going to take at least 1, maybe 2 shots from the tower. Versus Vic, he can rally off to the left of his barracks and not take any damage there. We can already see the damage starting to come down. That's going to be a lot of free DPS over the course of the game. If you calculate 1 or 2 shots on each batch of muskets that comes out.
Yeah, that's going to be, well, I mean, one of those musketeers is half HP. Might end up being, if I take a small fight of only 5 musketeers apiece, might be the difference between winning the fight and losing the fight. Vic, bringing forward his explorer here, which I quite like as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I also thought was maybe a little bit of a mistake for Vic is he did get up in age a little bit earlier, but he didn't start building a barracks immediately. And so you kind of mentioned the musket spam that we're starting to see here. You can see that Vic is going to constantly be behind at least 5 musketeers for 10 to 15 seconds. That is going to give little windows of offset time where Lemmings can kind of poke in and out and try and do small engagements to get some volleys onto the musketeers that Vic maybe could have avoided. Certainly with the early age up time, that's the limiting factor on the barracks. Could have had the barracks out first. Let's see whether or not he's going to try and use one of those.
6 musk.
6 musk too, yeah.
If Vic can hold this, he's going to be in a fine position. That tower actually going to pay its dividends nice and early. Going to take basically a lot of time for Vic here. He saw the 6 musketeers coming in. There's another batch coming in, and actually he's going to pick up 2 or 3 musketeers. One of those is half HP now. Probably going to lose that extra musketeers from Lemmings. And if Victor can sort of poke in here, get back constantly, even though he hasn't sent that 6 musketeer shipment, he's actually ahead. Well, he's ahead sort of 10 villagers here, 9 villagers, and only behind in 2 military unit population. Now only 1 because of that bonus. And actually the Minutemen got brought out. I didn't realise that. So there's the difference in military unit population. I don't know if I like the Minutemen call here.
Yeah, I don't know if I do either. I think he probably could have just bought time by just running back and forth with his muskets, never threatening to actually fully engage.
Yeah.
The Minutemen certainly feeling a little extra hasty. Not sure that I necessarily agree with that. Something like a 6 longbow shipment here, although we love to meme on it, is actually pretty good right now.
There's 6 longbow coming in. Would actually like to see that outpost being repaired. Quite cheap to repair an outpost.
Totally, yeah, and it's gonna pay off easily over the course of the game. I haven't been counting the number of shots, but it's probably gotten off
probably 10, 15. Yeah.
Lots of damage, lots of free damage. Here's going to be another shot or 2.
And 6 longbow, of course. In a bit more, you don't tend to mass longbow simply because they're a bit clunky. You can run away with musketeers not taking a huge amount of damage off of them, and actually hussars, if there's a hussar switch at all, they just demolish longbows really easily. But and also longbows actually aren't very good against musk anyway because their bonus isn't that high. But having 6 at the back, I mean, even if you don't micro them, obviously you can micro a longbow to make them a lot better. But even if you don't micro them at the back, they do a decent amount of damage just firing some shots off, and especially if they're at the back of musketeers, they won't get a lot of shots on them. So just having 6 longbow mixed in there is really nice. Victor Sweet way ahead on the mana population here, on at least 2 manas ahead, as well as that 5 unit villager shipment. Lemmings, so Lemmings basically can't mass as much, and he only has 1 barracks as well. And at the same time, there's no stable going down in base or anything like that for Lemmings. He is expanding onto the map. Oh, there's a 2nd barracks there.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird position. It's kind of like in a position where he feels like he knows he's going to lose his forward, and so he's trying to like pretty preemptively be ready to rebuild somewhere else.
But really the negative of having that 2nd barrack so far away is Vic, if he gets pushed here, he knows that there's going to be 2 batches of musketeers coming out at some point. So if he gets pushed on that forward base, there you go, as you can see, 5 musketeer batches coming out at the same time. Means that if he gets pushed in there, he basically can hold out until another batch comes out. But Lemmings, if he gets pushed on this barracks, which he's going to in just a second, I mean, he can only ever have 1 batch of musk come directly out and straight into the fight, which is going to be a slight negative. But there is Musketeer going to do damage using that to explore, maybe to snare, but he was trying to. And there you can see, I mean, only 5 Musketeers. Those other 5 Musketeers are quite far away, and allows basically Victor Sweet to get away with not having too many shots on him. I think he should take this fight, though. Although, with Musketeer going to do coming in.
Big reinforcement batch coming in here too, as well from the left. He still has the Minutemen alive, although they're on very low HP.
They're doing damage.
Yes, as well with those couple of longbows in the mix. I like Vic's composition here. I think he can continue the fight.
And yeah, there's longbows actually doing good damage at the back. Again, you don't want too many longbows, they're not great, but when they're not moving and just firing, they do incredibly well. And actually taking down that barracks really nice and early was pretty huge. Able to basically halve Lemmings' musketeer output for a while. There's probably a barracks going down somewhere for Lemmings. There has to be. Otherwise, he's so far behind a musketeer count now that he's going to get rolled over by Victor Sweet. I like not going on this outpost, keeping it alive. It is doing a bit of damage, but the damage it's doing is not as big as the damage that Victor Sweet able to do to those musketeers. Looking at the decks of Victor Sweet here, doesn't have advanced arsenal, but he does have team infantry combat or musketeer grenadier combat. Or HP even, which hasn't come in just yet, but would like to see it coming in. There you go, right away coming in at 11 minutes. Lemmings does, of course, have basically the same deck here as Victor Sweet, but it hasn't sent in that team... Oh, exactly the same time, actually. Just slightly behind on that XP curve. But losing his forward base here, being behind significantly in a column. I don't know if he's been raided here. Hasn't been raided at all, but... hasn't been able to boom, really, behind this. Those 6 musketeers coming early didn't really pay off at all.
No, they didn't. And certainly with the 6 musk shipment, you need to make something happen, or at least acknowledge that you're going to be behind. And now that he's lost map control and map position, look at how dangerous all of these villager pockets are going to be. Remember, we talked about early in the game um, the reason why players go into the middle of the map, especially on a map like Kamchatka, is to secure their side of the map, their side of the hunts, give you a more mobile position that you can maneuver around for your army to defend against raids and do that kind of thing. Now that Vic has definitively won the middle of the map, you can see how precarious of a position it looks like for Lemmings to continue to hunt. A little bit of a raid coming, but that's going to be cut off very nicely.
Yeah, and losing, I think, what, 9 musketeers there isn't going to be great. Losing at least 5. There isn't any units behind to snare, but Victor does pick off that last one. So actually losing 6 musketeers there, and when you're so far behind in military unit population here, you can see the difference. And actually a little raid coming in for the side, I didn't see that. But yeah, Victor taking the first game versus Lemmings here on actually both of their main civs. We'll type a GG there. We'll ask if it's lagging, because it did lag at the start, but it didn't look like it lagged later on actually, which is promising.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that was a good display of what now day Britmere looks like. It's really funny. We were talking at the beginning, rewind the clock. What did Britmere look like in 2005? It was longbows. People were making longbows. You would make effectively big masses of walls all around your base, and you would spam longbows everywhere. A big part of that was some of the inconsistency of the hunt as well. Certainly, with more consistent maps, more consistent hunt, it's easier to keep that musket spam going, especially out of multiple barracks. But definitely well played by both players. Britmere's early in the game are always fun to watch because there's always, or usually that early aggressive point of contention in the middle of the map. It's really fun and exciting to watch.
Yeah, and as you can see from the military population here, Victor just had an incredibly good fight actually at the sort of 10-minute mark, taking down a lot of Lemmings units and actually not losing many himself, only losing 10 units compared to Lemming losing sort of half his mass. And I think really into Lemmings putting that second barracks quite far away and actually putting the outposts in quite not the best position. I think sort of stole the game for Victor there. That forward outpost actually, I think I counted about five musketeers that actually ended up killing or damaging, which was quite a considerable amount of damage it did there. And unfortunately, Lemmings he just wasn't able to boom behind the early 6 musketeers. Could have had quite a nice timing pusher, but wasn't able to take out the double rack spam nice and early of Victor Sui. But yeah, first game going to Victor. Of course, it is a best of 5, so early days. But I don't know if you're too up to date with the picking of civs, but it is Victor Sui to pick first, and how it works is that Lemmings is able to counter pick here over Victor.
Yeah, got it. And both players know the map going into the match, right?
Yeah. So in this tournament in particular, Lemmings gets to pick one. Basically, the loser gets to pick out of their sort of map set. So I don't know what Lemmings or Victors are. I will actually just have a look on ESOC. They are posted there, and we'll try and I can see what they are. But I think probably both of them have quite standard map sets. Just thinking about the two players, they're not players who tend to play water or tend to play anything like that. But let's have a look. So for Lemmings, it is Pampa Sierra, which is another TP map. Tuparo, which you probably haven't actually seen. It's one of the newer maps that Dan still made for ESOC, which is a TP map where there's 2 lines of TPs either side, and Florida. That's a classic map. For Victor Sui, we do have Manchac, Herald Island, and Arkansas. I will just post those into the chat there so the players can see. But by looks of it, we're going to go into Pampa Sierra. I think this map's been around for quite a long time here. Probably.
Yeah, it's what I'm familiar with at least. So it's been, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. It hasn't changed in that time either. I think the only thing which has changed about it is the XP on the native posts. But in a tournament, you tend to know what map you're going to go into, so you tend not to pick you're going to pick a non-TP civ here. You can go for something a bit funky like natives. I think someone like Migo likes going for natives, but actually, yeah, I mean Victor Sui, he plays quite. He doesn't play odd because he plays in a different time style. So I don't know how popular natives were back in sort of 2005 era, but they're not too popular now.
No, not super popular. I would guess Vic will pick something that's Asian oriented, maybe like a China, Japan, and India, something that's not super TP dependent, and
Yeah.
has kind of like a cookie cutter build that he can follow. Um, I don't know, maybe something like China. Although Vic doesn't play a ton of China, I think this is a
Aztec.
decent map for Aztec. Interesting.
Quite an interesting civ to first pick here, because I know Vic plays a lot of Aztecs. Maybe he's thinking Lemmings is going to go for sort of an India pick himself or something, but Aztec is quite easy to counter pick. Not on non-TP, it's not the easiest, but I mean, there's civs which just demolish Aztec. I think Russia, for example, is pretty good against Aztec, right? Generally speaking.
Yeah, it can. I think Russia's good on a no TP map just in general because a
Yeah,
lot of civilizations that beat Russia rely on like crisp H3 timings with units that ultimately just like mess with Russia's comp, right? So like skirmishers, Russia doesn't have really anything that's great against skirm goon.
yeah,
It's really hard for them to combat that combination. Um, but with no TP, no way to get to the third age to utilize that strength or advantage. Maybe something like a Dutch could be okay here too. Other booming mechanisms can play more turtily against
India.
aggression. India.
So yeah, India versus Aztec is sort of a classic matchup, isn't it? Obviously, Aztec is the aggressor. India tends to put their aggro fort in base, and obviously Aztec as a civ is particularly good against Tad civs because they have that bonus. You can get a fire pit upgrade, which goes to three times your XP income for when you just delete units or kill units or whatever. So Victor Sui, if he could take out that aggro nice and early, gives you 720 XP if you get the upgrade from the fire pit, and 720 XP sort of early on in the game is like two shipments, which it just powers the Aztec economy so much. But quite an interesting matchup, a matchup we see quite often, but a matchup which is it can go either way very easily. It's 50-50, which is what's so great about it.
Yeah, there's some kind of fun things that I'm looking forward to with this. Vic, when he used to play Aztecs a lot 10 years ago, liked to do a lot of funky like FI builds. Certainly without TPs, FI builds not that strong. And so I'm not necessarily looking for it here, but certainly from a playstyle perspective, it's something that he's attuned with and has been known to do. So let's see whether or not he does something more standard, tries to keep him in age two, tries to bottle the Indian player up, keep them behind their aggro fort, slowly starve them out, or whether or not he tries to do something H3, H4 oriented.
Yeah. He did get a wood start here, Victor, in the North map. Obviously, that's probably better for India here. India likes that extra wood crate start, allows you to get a slightly faster age up time, which is particularly good against Aztec. But by the looks at Victor, going to go across the map, going to try and pick up the llamas. India does have the advantage here. Llamas are incredibly good for India. Actually, the best herdable, not herdable, the best. I don't. Are they called herdable? Yeah, they are called herdables.
Yeah.
For India actually on patch. Because they have the best base rate over the not having a sacred shrine or whatever they're called, which is really, really nice. There is three left. India has picked up three already, and Victor picking up two here. But it looks like India going to still the sort of close ones to the Aztec base here. So India going to be on 6 llamas early on, which is huge actually. That's probably about the same as 3/4 of the TP, which is a nice and early wood trickle shipment if he chooses to go for that.
That's actually insane. I wasn't really thinking about the llama situation. Really a nice pick by Lemming. Certainly India with the two explorers, two fast explorers, able to go and nab 75% of those llamas, which is going to be huge, like you mentioned. Interestingly to me, Vic didn't send the warrior priest over to the left side of the map as well to try and contest some of that, and instead just kind of hung around his base.
Yeah, he went. I think he went to the right with the warrior priest. There's a bit of a contention here for 75 wood, which is particularly important for India. Victor Swede does pick that up. Does get snared actually by that Aztec explorer, but will utilise the pulling mechanic here from on that elephant, pulling him forward. One thing you can do with India is pull forward those elephants. That outlaw blowgunner actually though is particularly important for Victor to keep alive here. Because one thing that the Indian elephants do, which isn't great, is that they don't have a very good way of dealing with the converted guardians. Obviously, the European explorers can just crackshot it, but the Indian explorers have to get actually next to the guardians to do a decent amount of damage and stun them. And so, obviously, the outlaw blowgunner here doing 30 damage a shot does do a decent chunk of the Indian explorers' damage HP, and you want to keep those alive as India, especially versus an Aztec if he rushes.
Yeah, and for other reasons too, they're good against defending against early pressure. If you can get them in the middle of like a batch of coyotes or Mace Holton that are attacking your forward base or something, and you get one of those big stomps off, it can be super good for deflecting early pressure and keeping control of the mid game as well. Another two sheep as well for Lemmings. That's going to be really good for his early XP game.
Yeah, he's going to have an incredibly good curve. If we have a look at the decks, we'll just have a look in just a second. Victor Swee's deck here does have natives, native treaties in that deck, which I quite like actually, especially on this map in particular. I mean, you have the Inca, which are incredibly strong. They have the Humonka there, as well as the Incan Bolos warriors, as well as actually a speed upgrade, which is particularly nice for Mace Holton, 20% there. There's also Incan metalworking, which we might see having some use, but also Mapuche here. Mapuche themselves are pretty poor, but Mapuche tactics 50% siege on infantry, hand infantry, and when you're Aztec, you do have, of course, I forgot what they're called now, the Puma Spearmen, which I believe have something like 48 at siege or 42 siege, and 50% of that is brings them up to sort of 60, 65 siege, which is insane for an age 2 unit, which is actually not counted by Minutemen anymore. That's been changed. So that's one area of the matchup which, by the looks of it, Victor Sui is rushing hero going forward. But one area of the matchup which has changed quite heavily is that change to the Pumas, simply because Pumas used to die very, very quickly to the Ottoman consulate Minutemen, but now that they don't, they tend to struggle. India versus a massive Puma.
Yeah, take a look at where the Agra Fort is. That is in a position that we call the "Don't Hurt Me" Agra Fort. Super defensive. One of the good things about India is because they do train villagers out of wood, they can make hunts last quite a long time in base. And so you see how defensive this Agra Fort is. It's a good opportunity for him to stay turtled up, combining with the market position, which nicely protects the left side of the gold mine. He can maybe throw a piece of a wall between the barracks and the market as well. Gives him a super defensive, super hard to crack position that should keep him safe with all that extra bonus XP with the resources in base, decent herding that he's done for quite some time.
He's also laming us for the villager a bit. Those two outlaw blowgunners. Several servants does come in for lemmings, a bit late, but again, yeah, would like to see a little bit of a war segment between that market and that Agra Fort. It's only sort of 10-15 wood there, and it I guess gives a lot of utility, just allowing you to have a decent amount of Gurkha behind that wall shooting at Mace Holton or what have you. We will see the Indian explorers actually being quite cheeky here, running around scouting. If those get caught out, that's going to be huge. They effectively work as a sort of a hussar tanking-wise, and do a little bit of damage, which is nice against Mace Holton. Victor is utilising those two outlaw blowgunners to sort of snare some units off the herd, which I quite liked, stopping them herding in, as well as the scouting. And a couple of Pumas came out as the first batch. They are getting damaged here. Might take out a single Puma without Agra Fort, but no, it doesn't just. But he is going to pick up these elephants if he's watching. And, yeah, he does.
Yeah. One of the interesting things here, 600 wood coming in, I do like that because it dovetails nice with the comment I was about to make, which is oftentimes when you're trying to resource starve an opponent like Vic is going to be doing here with the Aztec civilization, the resource that you're trying to starve is something along the lines of food or coin, just because for most civilizations those tend to be the resources that farm out the quickest. If you look at the wood situation here in the base of Lemmings, he has one tree that has about 270 wood left, which is really nice and defensive. The rest of the trees are going to be very exposed to this kind of side pressure that Vic's able to put. That's one of the arguments I would have maybe made to put the Agra Fort a little bit further to the left, just to guard more of those trees.
One thing to note about the Indian trees, though, is they do have more wood. The number we see is a bit of a lie. The Indian trees have, I think, 150 more wood or something. So it allows them to last a little bit longer. And is going to lose a villager here. That will also give Victor Sui an extra 20 XP. Would like to see the upgrade coming in from the fire pit. It's only 150 resources, 50 food, 50 coin, 50 wood, which will allow him to get 3x, what is it called, XP coming in. But this is quite a mass here from Victor. And there's only 8 units on the field from Lemmings here. Another batch of Gurkha, I think, are in queue. Yeah, another batch of Gurkha and Q. Also the ability for maybe 4 Sours or 5 Sepoy coming out. But this matchup's really, really difficult for India as it stands now. Because just look at this mass. Mace Holton just tear through, basically, the Sepoys. And that's why you can't really make Sepoys. But there's actually no Coyotes on the field. Only a couple for Victor. So maybe he needs to back off here. Because Gurkha do well against Mace Holton and Puma.
Yeah, and certainly this matchup is scarier on a TP map, I think, too. Imagine you had a 3 TP eco booming behind this for the Aztec player. Definitely a way different situation. I don't necessarily think that India minds too much. He did lose a villager or two. His resources are a little awkward. But I think, all things considered, it's not the worst position for him to be in.
Yeah, it's not a terrible position. He's got enough hunt at the back of the base here. Thankfully, it spawned right at the back for him to keep them alive. He is going to nearly lose another villager. Do we see any Eastern medicine? Yeah, no Eastern medicine. Would like to see that come out at some point for Lemmings. Can end up saving a lot of your villagers. But Victor being quite apprehensive to go in here, which I think it might end up hurting him a little bit, because obviously India does have all those hunts next to the Agro Fort, which aren't really usable, but because he's got all that hunt at the back, he still has a coin mine nicely tucked into his base with 1,000 coin in there. Yeah, this push here, I mean, it's scary, obviously, but it's not as scary as the push that just happened. And you're going to see sort of 4 Sours coming in or something alike to it. Although he is getting pushed off the bottom here with no Easter medicine on his villagers. There's a lot of Coyotes. But Victor actually pulling them off before they get any damage done.
Yeah, he did manage to bait one of the pops of Minutemen, so irregulars have been called. I really think Vic is pushing the wrong side of the map here. He has the native scout back on these food villagers, and so I think that's what he's zeroing in on. But if you look at the right side of the map where the villagers are chopping wood and mining coin, I think it's a little bit more accessible. Certainly, he doesn't want to engage directly underneath the base because of the threat of Minutemen and more Minutemen coming from the Ottoman consulate, especially when diplomatic intrigue has been set. At the same time, he's not having a ton of success and losing a lot of HP to Agrifort and TC Fire ultimately without accomplishing a ton.
Yeah, 4 Sours now coming in for India, bolstering that mass. There's not a lot of anti-cav here, though, notably. Only 6 musketeers, and of course, those Sours and Gardeners do act sort of as anti-cav. But actually, a lot of these units now going down to the Pumas, and now that half of those units, those Sepoy are down. The Gurkhas are sort of free to die on the right-hand side, but actually the Coyotes are getting attacked quite heavily by these Sours, and the Gardeners Gurkha doing quite nice damage behind this. Although now all the Coyotes are on the Gurkha, there's not any sort of anti-cav at all for Lemmings on the field. Those Minutemen did get popped on the other hand side. And actually, I think this might be quite a good trade for Lemmings here. He's ahead on military unit population with those Minutemen coming in. There's not a lot of Mace Holton left, and even though these Coyotes are doing good damage versus the Gurkha, Swee pushing in here, not really gaining anything out of it. He hasn't taken any villagers down in that fight. At least any other, he maybe took out 1 or 2. But Lemmings arriving with quite a nice mass here. A lot of Gurkha, a lot of Minutemen still alive. And of course now probably going to go into to Sepoy production. And Victor Sween hasn't really got a follow-up after this. There's no TP Stagecoach, as you said.
No, it's really hard. Honestly, from this point forward, I think it's hard for Aztec. That was actually a beautiful fight for Lemmings. He got exactly what he wanted. He got an overcommitment under the Agrifort with TC Fire, Auto Minutemen, Sentry and Irregulars coming in from the side as well. All of those Minutemen types of units are very strong when they're all called at the same time, and there's just a big cluster of units fighting. Really, all India has to do at that point is try and manage the Gurkhas the best he can and just let the Minutemen kind of soak damage and do DPS out front. While all the extra damage comes in for Agrifort and TC Fire. Did a good job of protecting the villagers that he needed to protect, has resulted in him being ahead in economic unit population. And I think from here, India has a pretty straightforward path to victory. All of the pressure that he was previously having in his base that was kind of hampering his growth, being able to farm or rather hunt and mine easily, is gone. And now deflecting the pressure is going to be super easy, and he can just kind of mass up, play eco, and push out at a timing of his own.
Actually taking out that native scout as well. There's not a lot of hunt left for lemmings. He does have the hunt in the trees here, which will sustain him for a while. You said earlier about how India can sort of survive without a lot of hunt because of their villagers costing wood. Now going into sort of a Zambrak composition. Going forward here, he's going to be trying to take out some of those coyote runners. Victor Sweet doesn't have a warrior priest boom behind this. I would like to see probably 3 warrior priests coming in, trying to salvage his economy and as any way possible, really. It does have 5 settlers coming in here then, so he is sort of equal in terms of economic unit population, but in terms of sort of upgrades on him, he only has that hunting dogs upgrade, whilst lemmings has quite a stack here. Hunting eagles, which of course is the first level upgrade, the blanket filters there as well, but having that imperial bureaucracy, that's 15%. Oh no, yeah, it's 15%, yeah. Now Flume and Ditching coming in, and Lemmings' economy is powering up now. It's India's time to shine, really. Now 700 coin coming in, going to be massing a lot of Zambraks. I would like to see Desert Terror as well as Camel Attack coming in before he pushes, or even, 10 Tiger Claws isn't a bad shout here, just to bolster your forces and have something which takes out Mace Sultan nice and easily. But a lot of Puma Spearmen here for Victor.
Yeah, I'm not even convinced that Lemmings needs to move forward here. Like, he has a ton of resources in base. He still has a coin mine. He's secured everything he needs to. You don't want to get into a situation where you find yourself overcommitted in the same way that Vic did, and getting trapped by something stupid, snared under a war hut. With 10 mace popping off from the side. Honestly, he can probably just continue to stand under the Agra fort, ship 600 coin, look like he's going to age, pretend that he doesn't need to have any initiative here. There's nothing scary out on the map. There's no TP boom or warrior priest boom to be aware of. He needs to be really careful that he doesn't overcommit.
Yeah, and a big batch or something popping from that water it would actually be devastating. I mean, 5 coyotes or something popping. The Zambaks do actually worse than versus coyotes when they do against normal units. There's actually a lot of coyotes on the Gurkha here. And Puma, when they got on top of the Gurkha, they do actually some decent damage, 12 damage. Of course, they do get countered by Gurkha, but when they're in hand-to-hand combat, they don't do too badly. Losing a lot of units here with Victor, not too good by the looks of it. Losing a lot of these Pumas, which were essentially useless as a composition of lemmings. And unfortunately, by the looks of it, Victor got a call for GG here against lemmings. So going to go 1-all in a best-of-5 series here.
Yeah, no, totally. And at the end of the day, a decent fight from lemmings. Did a good job of kiting, not overcommitting. Didn't see him do anything crazy like going behind the war hut or trying to siege it down. Just poking with the Gurkhas, being safe, knowing that he has an economic advantage behind all of this, and ultimately using that to secure the victory. Well played by him.
Well played by lemmings, yeah. And sort of showing this matchup has this dynamic where if India's able to repel the Aztec push, that big Aztec push when it comes in, really, I mean, they've won the game. There's not a huge amount that Victor Sweet can do after that, simply because his economy is worse. India's units are incredibly strong in age 2, and I mean, Gurkha Zamb is basically a skirm goon, which is actually what Victor Sweet's Aztec here sort of struggles against. Obviously, Coyotes aren't the best Hussar type unit, and Mace Sultan particularly struggle versus units that aren't heavy infantry. But we'll back out here. We'll have a look at the post game just quickly. You can see there Victor Sweet having a lot more units than the Lemmings as a whole, but the quality of the units that the Indian player can have is probably a lot higher.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the military unit population graph. Look at how long Lemmings held out with under 10 units. And then certainly when he needed to fight, he had that one big devastating fight in his base where he just had an awesome trade, effectively killed Vic's whole army with a big pops of Minutemen and unit shipments and everything coming together at the same time. Really well played by him, showing a good clinic on how to survive as India in this matchup, and ultimately swinging that into a military unit population. And once you have an advantage, and Aztec doesn't have an economic follow-up, a pretty easy victory from there.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if he pushed in when Victor had sort of 35 units, and comparatively Lemmings only had 10. Would have sort of been a cleanup, I feel. But you can actually see the rise in Lemmings' army there in sort of a minute and 30 seconds. He gained 30 military unit population from the Minutemen popping, the Samoans popping. and of course some batches of Gurkha in between, and really that fight just went so badly for Victor. He was never able to really grasp back at the straws that he needed. We'll back out here. It is 1-1, but it is Victor Sweet to pick his map, and of course to counter pick, which is what's important. I think slightly more important than actually picking the map yourself. For some reason, Mohammed is in game. I don't know why that's the case.
Yeah, he's a Japan player. Maybe we should just let him stick around. A Japan player with yellow ping. You always love to see that. It reminds me of like Acer Game or something like that.
He came back at one point, Acer Game.
Acer Game did recently. I know he's been around tournaments.
Like a year ago.
Yeah, okay.
And he played some team games, only as Japan, and then he just left.
The fun thing about Acer Game is he almost always had some sort of lag associated with him.
Yeah.
And when you're playing a civilization that has fast muskets,
they just beat everything in lag.
You just attack move, and you know that the game still behaves deterministically, right? And so if you're attack moving with a fast moving musket, they're still gonna chase stuff. They're still gonna shoot. But if you're playing a more refined civilization that needs to kite or play defensively, it's just so frustrating to deal with fast moving muskets and lag.
But if it looks at France versus Iroquois on Herald Island, not a map we see too often, but it is a TP map. Quite low hunt on this map as well, which is probably why Iroquois has been picked here. But Iroquois, I think most people see as sort of a slightly better France. Lower eco, of course, but they have a nicer FF timing, really, simply because forest battles are so good. Musket riders are actually insane as well. And Skirm Goon, if you just go completely Skirm Goon, Lemmings should win here. Or should have the advantage, not should win. That's the wrong wording. Should have the advantage in early fortress. But as the game goes on, France is the civ, which should slowly pull ahead of their better economy nice and early. But Herald Island, I don't know if this is a map which you've seen before. I think it's quite new. I'm not entirely sure.
It doesn't look super familiar. It looks kind of what's the Asian dynasties map that has Borneo, I think is the name of it. Reminds me kind of like a winter Borneo with some different geography and topography.
Yukon. One where you have you have water one side.
Yeah, that one too. But the fact that it's a smaller rush distance because of the fact that there's a ring of water on it.
Oh yeah. It is Borneo, then. You are right.
Yeah.
But
it's still a large map. The rush distance isn't quite as short as it is in Borneo. I like it. It looks really nice.
Yeah, you can't build any docks either. You used to be able to build a dock in this big area here, which is pretty funny. And the warships would shoot like a 30-degree angle, but that's been patched. But by the looks of it was a food starter, so better for Iroquois, I feel. Obviously, France will go for a nice and early market. You either go market start or the TP start as France. Of course, Iroquois are just going to go for a nice and early age up. Obviously, they don't have any wood crates like they do on RE. It's going to pick up 75 wood here, whilst Victor Sui picks himself up 40 coin, 40 XP. Maybe Iroquois will switch into a TP, but looks like it doesn't actually. It's maybe not early enough, but he is using that Discovery Travois to sort of scout around. And comparatively, France is actually going to pick up 80 XP here. If it doesn't get spotted, it might get spotted here, and his Explorer might get snared, which would be quite big.
I'm just looking at the end of the TP map. Is that guy? Is he okay? He disappears. I was wondering. I don't know if you look at the ends of the TP map, but they've got this little turnaround, and I was curious to see whether or not the guy was actually going to go and walk around and turn around in that thing. I'd never seen that mechanic before, and so I was super hopeful that the guy would use that little cul-de-sac as a way to turn around.
That'd be pretty insane, though, actually. If you got a pass, and then you instantly get another pass if you're on the end, which is would actually be incredibly overpowered, because obviously the first pass of XP is on some maps in particular is incredibly important. High Plains is one which changes the matchup incredibly, but yeah, that would be ridiculous. It actually would be pretty cool as well. Might be a bit of a contention here around 50 wood. The Iroquois Explorer taking time to actually shoot the French Explorer, ending that fight there basically, and ending him not getting the wood. But the snare is still possible here. Does nearly take out that native scout. Only 24 HP, because native scout's pretty important actually for France. Sort of allows you to see if Iroquois is going to go for a rush agenda instead of an A3 agenda.
Yeah, they're also so fast though. So that native scout just sprinting away from the wolf, not going to have anything to do with him.
Lemmings did actually crack shot that native scout, which is quite nice. So it's on 24 HP, but really a native scout on 1 HP is as good as a native scout on 120 HP for most of the game anyway. So that doesn't really change too much. Victor C. Even Lemmings is going to pick up 30 coin here. Victor C did pick up that 50 wood as I said earlier, so I get a slightly earlier TP, which will be quite nice. Looking at each player's decks, Victor C has quite an interesting deck here actually. Has the Expo into Skirmisher card, which actually isn't very good because the Expo are quite expensive as it goes, but not a card you see too often. As well as Spice Trade here. 2 cards you don't see at all really in players' decks.
Yeah, Spice Trade honestly both of those are like 2008 level cards. Spice Trade I actually think can be good, and the reason it used to be good, especially on some of the older fan patches, is because if you have a prolonged Age 2 fight on a high hunt map, that's when you would want to send Spice Trade. And so especially back in the day when everyone would just basically muscuss into each other and fight really long Age 2 fights on high hunt maps like Great Plains or something like that, Spice Trade would be quite good in that meta. So it's like a meta card pick. The crossbow shuffle card as well. I actually don't know how to say that card at all. Tura Lures.
I'm not going to even try.
is in the same family of, if you're playing a long Age 2 game where you're playing with a lot of crossbows and you finally get aged up with like 700 coin, it can be a decent alternative if you have 50 existing crossbows or something like that, other than sending 8 skirm or 2 felt, something like that. But I agree, in the current meta, I don't necessarily see a position for those 2 cards to exist.
This is interesting. 2 villagers going forward for Sui.
Interesting, yeah. I'm curious. Maybe he'll do some sort of aggressive Samwise build or something like that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, he's gathering. He's going to go for a Vax. Might see a third Vax, or second and third Vax. You never know. He is herding here.
He stops constructing the first one, gathers his 400 wood, and leaves the first one at like 50 HP and drops 2 more. I think that would make everyone go crazy.
Yeah, but he might go for a stable instead, as you said, a Samwise build. Maybe he's just going to go forward, sort of pushing in here, maybe falsifying a rush. Because although saying that, he has for his upgrades only got hunting dogs. Only got steel traps. There hasn't got placer mines. Doesn't have enough wood even for placer mines. Units in queue here. Does have some musketeers in queue, and actually going to go by the looks of it. Oh, he didn't build his TP.
Oh no.
Oh, it's half HP. That's not good.
Wonder if he knows that. That's unfortunate. He's over here brawling as well out in the middle of the map with his scout. He has no idea that his TP's only half finished.
Yeah, it's maybe we'll see it never go up the whole game. That'd be pretty funny. But Musketeers have been out here. Musketeers, of course, do beat Tomahawks, I feel. They have slightly less HP, but they don't have a really annoyingly long animation. But actually, 5 more coming in, and you do have that crack shot for the Iroquois Explorer, which I believe does 90 damage area 2 or something, which is really nice. But those 2 French units are also going to get Great coat in here, and with those extra 5 musketeers, he's probably going to be doing to defend here quite nicely. And actually, even bringing those 2 CDB into the fight, which I quite like. A decent amount of tanking on those units. Lemmings' deck has all the Age 2 cards you'd ever want. And Victor Sui still not noticing that trading post, so his XP curve could be quite low here. And having a low XP curve isn't great. There's a stable going down, so probably looks like it's going to be a Muskus build. And actually, if us kind of see that trading post. It's not up. We actually will siege it down very, very quickly.
Yeah, those Kenyans, I think, are going to be super surprised and super happy. In fact, it might be a good thing for Vic if those cavalry units siege down his trading post, because at least he'll see it and acknowledge it at that point. I think right now it's just an awareness campaign that Vic needs to realize that, hey, my trading post is not built. That's a big problem.
And he's basically playing no TP France here, which is pretty poor. Comet K donating, or Trevor donating $35 here, saying not enough dead herds. Yeah, Victor Swee not Swee herding by the looks of it. Has only 1 or 2 dead, and they're all being worked on here. But I will take this time as a bit of a lull in the fighting to note that every donation, every sub, each sub revenue even from ESOC will be going towards the charity of Comet K's choice, which I believe is what's it called? It's Sacred Heart or something, which is to do with COVID. Helps families with COVID in the San Francisco or the Californian area, which is dear to Trevor's heart there. I know you've donated a lot of money towards it through subs, 50 subs I think last time I streamed, and I read all the names out as well.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I actually really admire your persistence, because that was, I don't know, it seems like one pops up on the screen every 15 seconds or so. You did a great job of continuing the flow of commentary and mixing in each name as it went by. I was super impressed.
Yeah, thank you very much. It helped a bit when it was early game. There's not a huge amount to say early game. If it was in the middle of a fight, I think it would have been pretty much impossible. But Victor not noticing his TP. It's so close as well. He's within the same screen if he were to zoom completely out as the TP, and he still hasn't noticed.
The Hussar will run by, and he'll like look at the Hussar, and that will like make him realize the scout is still just like running around in the middle of the map. So I don't think he realizes it yet.
Ooh, his line of sight was just out as well, which is. Well, he's now amassing a lot of Hussar. By the looks of it, Lemmings going into Kanya production himself. Although he's got to lose a couple of his Kanya, half of them half HP, and actually going into Aina now. And there's a lot of Aina on the field. If we have a look, there's only 8 Tomahawks here. So if actually, even with a non-TP map that Victor is playing by himself, setting some rules which Lemmings isn't following by, maybe. But he will get a good trade here if he's able to get in now, as not a lot of anti-cavalry. And Lemmings even shipping in the crates, which shows to me that he's going to go for a sort of a drawn-out game in Age 2. And those Hussars getting a good trade in the Canyon, actually, taking out a number of them. Only one of them left, which is sort of usable. Actually, all of them on really incredibly low HP there.
Yeah, that was a great trade for Vic. He kind of just stumbled across them. Really good trade for him. Ultimately ends up killing 1 or 2 and highly damaging the rest of them. Looks like he's going to push it in and try and fight right here.
Yeah, and Lemmings has used his big button here. And over Tomahawks over to the side. Going to be taking out a couple of these villagers here, which I quite like. 6 Tomahawks isn't going to come either, because 600 coin just came in for Lemmings there. And again, there's no anti-cav here. Victor having his time with all the Tomahawks, which just popped out of the barracks here. Losing a lot of those Hussars, and I don't think there's any Hussars in queue. Victor even going for a second trading post here. About the first one up.
I think he's won though. I think he wins this.
He has won, yeah.
By him, yeah.
It does need to be careful about maybe some Tomahawks hopping or something, but I mean, he's so far ahead now. Not the greatest micro here from Vic, I'd say, but able to basically take out the base from Lemmings here. A second Warhawk going to go up from Lemmings over to the side, but he's playing for time here, and time isn't what he wants. He wants to try and take out his army, but he's not really able to do it. But Warhawk is going to go down. Is a possibility of 6 Tomahawks popping, but again, I mean, more Hussars now coming out, which will snare. Lemmings down 40-50 score. But I think the story of his game is that TP's still not up.
Yeah, I was actually hoping that Lemmings would resign before the second trading post went up for the French player, so that we could ping both of them and ask whether or not Vic was not planning on making any trading posts. Oh, here's a classic Swee move, by the way. If you look at the town center, this is what we call Swee sieging, where you just drag box everything. See how they're just like bumping around, like trying to like get to a position where they can make a big ring in siege. This is a classic Swee siege.
Yeah. I bet you get all the units sieging, I guess, but you can just box them up and it's the same thing. 7 Aina popped from that Warhawk.
The Aena damaging over here on the side is exactly the reason why you group your units up, so they can reactively go back and engage in small fights. Not going to matter.
All those villages going down. Lemmings, of course, is playing out the game a bit because it is a tournament. I will just let Victor know that he didn't build his TP.
Can't wait to see the reaction.
He might have left already, which I saw him in the lobby, I guess. There you go. But yeah, he's still staying. I mean, he was doing a lot of fighting actually, and fighting gives you a lot of XP anyway. So
Yeah,
maybe it didn't really
totally does.
matter too much. But I mean, he even had 200 wood basically put into that as well, and 200 wood early on is quite important in a game. So he did well to win that. I think maybe Lemmings shipping those 2 crate shipments was, I think, just a mistake from Lemmings. As Iroquois, you don't have the economy that France does, and really you want to try and mass up nice and early, and maybe sort of have the counter push yourself. Rather than and let France go Muskas, because Muskas beats Tomahawk Kanya quite easily. Looking at the post game here, military unit population, Victor just having more military unit and actually getting an incredibly nice trade of those hussars nice and early, and military unit population here, Victor actually not big behind in military unit population for most of the game, which is actually quite surprising.
No, and I agree with you. Back to your point on Lemmings card order, 3 vil, 5 vil. Fort Kanya seems really weird at that point in time to me. Usually, you go to Fort Kanya super early to either try and get an early raid in or secure map control. But sending 5 villagers before it seems a little off, and then the crates coming consecutively while the pressure was coming from the French player. The card order just seems a little off. Maybe either the Fort Kanya are really early to try and actually do some raiding and apply some pressure. Or maybe just stick with the economic focused cards early, and then transition into shipments to bolster your military when the time and push comes, or you're trying to play aggressively.
And yeah, I mean 600 coin. I think he was trying to H, but I mean versus this, I think you could probably just go 5 vil 800 resource crates and actually age as Lemmings here. It might not have worked, of course, but I think you can hold off a Muskas timing if you can get sort of 8 Forest Pillars or what's the other card I can send, which is quite nice. Five Musket Riders, the 2 big buttons, and you can maybe sort of hold off the timing from France there. But yeah, shipping those 2 resource crate shipments, I think weren't the best idea. Maybe if you went 5 vil 800 resources and then just into mass, and then you go for Kenya or something like that, would have been better. But those 4 Kenya did basically nothing, got caught off by the hussars nice and early, and ended not really helping out in the fight at all, which was what he needed without the anti-cab there.
Yeah, that was a fun game. Interesting to watch. Vic playing with a little bit of a handicap throughout, but managed to even. I guess he's up 2-1 now in score.
2-1.
It'll be interesting to see what the next matchup will be.
It is, by the looks of Japan on Tuparo. Japan being a really good civ actually on Tuparo. There is that Inca in there again, which do have a speed upgrade, which are pretty funny on Ashi. You can make Ashi have base speed of 4.5, and the Inca upgrade is 20%. So obviously you get 0.9 extra speed on those Ashi, and 0.9 extra speed, of course, translates to 5.4 speed on Ashigaru, which is ridiculous, really. It's the same as. Yeah, that's just ridiculous. Also have Carib in there, which give Yumi 10% extra damage in late game. And it's a bit like Bayou, this map, so all the hunts are sort of quite spread out. And it makes being able to shrine and stuff very, very easy, and they tend not to go down. But Lemmings does get counter-picked here, or Lemmings gets to counter-pick even on Victor. So wait and see what he picks.
Curious what he'll pick. Does Lemmings play Japan? This map, from the tournaments and streams I've watched, this map seems to be a really good Japan map.
Yeah.
Where you have lots of little tiny pieces of hunt spread all over the map. It's great for shrining. The rush distance seems to be pretty far. The TPs aren't great, especially when it spawns with the 2-sided TP maps. It's curious to see. It looks like he's going to pick Sue as his response.
Yeah, I don't know. Sue is. Maybe it's because Lemmings limited. He might have quite a limited map point. I know Lemmings plays Brits. He's already played Brits, didn't win it, so he could have played Brits again. But Brits isn't the best pick versus Japan, I don't think. But yeah, Sue's a bit of an interesting pick here. Sue is good, obviously, on maps against civs which need to go out to hunt, which this map is actually one where you sort of need to go out to hunt early as some civs. But Sue versus Japan, I mean, Japan stays in their base all the time. You can't really raid them too often. And, I mean, if Japan walls, Sue does incredibly badly, actually, against Japan. I mean, Obviously, Sue, they time that big button timing it and then go in against Ashi. Obviously, Japan doesn't have really a anti-cavalry unit, which isn't musketeers. But I mean, if you can get the upgrades on the Ashigaru, they just basically demolish everything that Sue has. Wakina's being particularly weak, and really, it's quite a hard matchup for Sue to really do anything in.
Yeah, it's a former Japan one trick. The two civs that I used to always love to see were Sue and Bort, because I just felt like, especially in older versions of patches, there just wasn't a ton that those two civs could do against Japan. Like it wasn't really a competitive matchup. I don't know. Certainly, I know things have changed, and the Sioux civilization is different. Sit and bows are, I think, a fair bit stronger than they used to be, but still, I don't know that Japan really needs to do anything other than make a bunch of Ashigarus, and if the Seton mass gets too big, maybe make a few Naginata riders. But other than that, it seems like a pretty straightforward matchup ultimately for Japan.
Yeah, so Seton's, I think since you last played, I mean, I don't know when you last played, but Setons have 4.5 speed now, so they're definitely better. Of course, you do have that TP. I think Sue probably the Civ which has changed probably the most since you played it, or since you played versus it even. But yeah, you can go down for that early TP. It is a food start, so probably better for Sue here. But yeah, Victor going for something which you don't see every day, which is a Japanese market in Age 1.
I was about to say, is that normal? I mean, apparently, based off of your comments, it's not a normal thing at all.
Normally, what you tend to do as Japan, if you get that 200 wood start, is you can go for a consulate, but it's a bit risky. It's quite hard to get the amount of resources you need. By the looks of it, Victor Sui here going to go for both Imperial Bureaucracy and the Cherry Blossoms upgrade with his macro, unless he's macroing wrong. Because the Cherry Blossoms upgrade, I think, is cheap. It's like 30 wood, 30 corn or something.
Yeah. Unless it's been changed, it's 25-25.
Yeah, it's 25. It is exactly the same. It hasn't been changed. But yeah, a market early on is peculiar. Actually, I don't know what Victor is doing here. He's chopping a lot of wood.
Yeah, I guess he needs He's okay. He's building another shrine? He's building a second shrine. So interesting. Like, he's shrine booming with a market that he's not making a text from.
But he's still chopping wood.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what he's doing.
Okay, I know what he's doing. He's chopped enough wood for civil servants. Unless he doesn't stop now. He doesn't stop now.
Treasure. So he's. I don't know.
I have no clue what it is. Yeah, we'll have a look at his deck. That might be a bit telling of what he's doing. Does have 2 villagers in there. Again, as I was going to say, normally if you're on 200 wood, you overship 300 wood and go for shrines, or you go for 2 villagers. There's a bit of a mix-up between the players, not knowing if it's better to go wood or villagers. It's a bit of a controversial issue. Thank you, Randy Splasher, for subscribing to ESOC. Again, half of the revenue, all the revenue from the ESOC subs will go directly towards that charity donation from what Trevor has put as the main goal for this tournament. Lemmings, but yeah, looking at Victor Sui's deck here, nothing really tells you that he'd go for anything which is sort of peculiar. And by the looks, only went for the Hamatai Panties or Parties or something. I don't know if it's called the FPS counters hiding it. And went for actually 3 shrines Age 1. So he's going to have a very late Age 1 here, but quite an economy going into Age 2.
Yeah, and one of the things I like, and maybe I'm starting to understand some of what Vic's idea is here, is look at where the shrines are. And we talked about this briefly about the map, but look at all the little pockets of hunts and how spread out you can make the shrines in like all of these locations. And it's so hard for Sue to do anything about them, right? Because the width of the map is so wide that you can, with the 2 scouts, really spread the shrine population into all corners of the map, and it's going to be very time consuming for the Sioux player to go and raid those locations. And so perhaps Vic just trying to do some sort of early shrine economy, make it tough for the Sioux player to target what he's trying to do early, and then especially now seeing the interesting wonder choice that Vic has gone with the shogunate. Maybe he's going to try and do some weird timing that is population dependent, and he needs that population, and he doesn't want to have to be spreading his monks back out to be building shrines.
But
Let's see what happens.
you could go for the Shogu, not the Shogun, the Shogu Shrine. I'm mixing the two names there, which gives you 20 population. So this is a really incredibly weird build from Victor. The Shogun at 2H2 actually is pretty poor anyway, because you don't even get the daimyo, do you? You only get 300 XP, I think. So it's not the greatest. Kaza, thank you for raiding with 51 people there, boosting the viewer count to around 150, which I don't actually know how many viewers you used to get on the old Age of Empire stream, which I don't know if it's still a thing actually. But yeah, for ESOC that's not too bad, especially for what you'd maybe say is a sort of a lower level game. I mean, these two players are still very, very good. But for a game like Kaiser versus Mitos, I think you may get 250 viewers or whatever. So 150 is really, really good here. Thank you for the raid, Hazard. But look, what did Lemmings do? We sort of neglected what he was doing there. Just looking at what Victor Sui was doing. But by the looks of it, going to go for a Corral, aged up with 400 wood there, sort of a standard. Went for a TP as well. And I would like to see him actually go for a second TP. You don't really have too much use, except for maybe a market with Sue here. And 700 coin now coming in. So maybe just going to go for a straight FF. But if you're going to go for an FF, I think you go for five villagers. Here for Lemmings. Although Lemmings have some weird cards here. It has 10 pistoleros, which isn't the most standard card there for Sue. Although I don't think it's too bad. I mean, 10 pistoleros it's roughly they have an awful animation, but it's roughly the same as sort of probably 12, 13 ashes if you count them as being sort of 1.2 of an ashy, I'd say. For 500 coin, it isn't too bad, actually. It's not an awful card. And, of course, with Sue, you don't really care about population.
No, you totally don't. And you made a comment of we hadn't looked at Lemming's base or commented on what he was doing. The reality is he was doing very normal stuff, which was making villagers and aging. So he's got a pretty standard look to his Sue play here. It looks like he is going to just straight FF. And then maybe he'll do something with rifle riders or some sort of early aggression with Wakinas or something like that. Curious to see what Vic's response to that will be.
Yeah, Vic's build is amazing. 2 villages, 4 villages, 4 villages. This is full greed, but also not going greedy at all with shrines. Which is...
At the same time, this is Vic always goes shogunate to colonial.
Yeah.
Apparently something that I was not aware of, so...
yeah, that's a great build. I don't know how good it's going to be, because look how far ahead he is in economic, actually. Even without shrines, he's on 31 villagers even, compared to 19 of Lemmings here. Lemmings shipping 4 axe, and I don't know if I like that. 4 axe isn't going to be doing too much here. Obviously, you can siege dance, and funnily enough, actually, because Victor went for the shogunate and went for such a low shrine population build, if Lemmings goes around here and goes for a fire pit, goes for a lot of villagers on that siege dance, he might be able to just sort of cap out Victor's military mass simply by killing the shrines.
Yeah, totally, and that's what he's doing. I mean, if you look at the play here, it's basically like spread out your cav, try and siege as many of the shrines as you can, which does seem to be working. I mean, he is going to cut into Vic's ability to train military units at some point if he's able to cap that enough. It's certainly an awkward build for Vic here. 600 wood coming in, at least that'll let him make a few more shrines, I think.
Yeah, second bounce going down by the looks of it. Maybe he's going to go for 3. You never know. But yeah, actually, one thing that the Shogunate does do is it reduces the train time and cost of the military units, apparently. I don't know how much by. It might be like 5% or something.
Yeah,
it is 5%. It is 5%.
I think it's 5%, yeah, because it makes Ashes cost like 76 food or something like that.
Yeah, the only reason I know is because I make your Jimbos quite a lot, and your Jimbos are 380 when you build a Shogunate instead of 400. So there's an easy 20%. But, or 5% even, not 20% would be ridiculous. But yeah, these axe riders, when you get the elite, I think it's called elite, yeah, elite axe riders coming in, and when you do siege dance, they actually are insane on shrines. They do something like 60 siege, 70 siege, and of course they have that speed, which allows you to get around the map, take down a lot of shrines nice and early. And one thing to know about Ashes, and even with some Yumis here, Ashes aren't particularly that good actually against cavalry. They only have a 3.5 multiplier, so they do 35 damage against cavalry with a 10 base there. And there's some clubs in there as well. But if those 5 riders come forward, and there's War Dance coming in, and he just goes in with this amount of elite axe riders, which are insanely good. Like axe riders, when they get some upgrades on them as well, they do 43 attack and have 300 HP. They're sort of Ulan and a Hussar mix there. Lemmings is just going to tear down this fight. Although Victor has such an economy now that he's now massing up. Did he just? Oh no, he didn't train the daimyo from the shogunate. I thought he did, but I don't know if you can. You train the shogunate?
And an age 2. I think it's an age 3, age 4.
So the shogunate is so bad age 2, and it's awful.
Yeah, it's not good at all. I actually don't like it. The way that Lemmings is playing this is just basically massing cav, running around and sieging down shrines. Like is going to work. Like at some point, Vic is going to have some level of difficulty keeping the shrine population up. He's just throwing away resources. They're not super cheap. He doesn't have Port Consulate or Heavenly Common reducing the price of them at all. And so at some point, push.
Does have War Dance in. I don't know how many villagers on that. It's a lot actually of villagers on that. And you can see the damage here. 53 attack on those axe riders, and comparatively those rifle riders have 19 attack here, and they do insanely well versus the Ashigaras. There are some clubs in there which are doing quite nice, and some Nagis mixed in there as well. But actually, I mean, just Minutemen did get called as well for Victor there. Victor not going to get the greatest trade here. Well, by the looks of it, he's going to clean up here. I don't know how, but he's going to clean up.
Yeah. And he didn't need a great trade because he was ahead in economic unit population. A bunch of villagers are dying, but that's okay. Like he's ahead to start with, and so sacrificing a little of his economy now to stay alive tanks some of that.
15 vills going down though.
Oof, yeah, that is a lot. It's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, and one thing to know about Japan, I say this all the time. I know you cast in the days of Vintage actually bring out a little calculator there. In games, and it's been integrated into the UI, which is great. But the UI is ever so slightly wrong for Japan here. Of course, the 0.8 for the shrines is actually a lot less. The 0.8 is accountable when you send Kami and when you have Dashogu. Victor Sui has neither of those. So his shrines are affecting the economy a decent chunk less. I think they do about 0.6. And of course, the Japanese villagers are always overrepresented. They do have a lot of upgrades on them now, but the Japanese villagers, when it comes to economic unit population, are probably about 0.8 themselves, because they are, of course, on berries. And a lot of villagers here. Shrines going down in base, not on hunts as well, is pretty poor here from Sui.
Yeah. The other thing we have to take into consideration here as well is that Lemmings is in the third age, right? And so the longer this game goes and he is in the third age, Vic is not. He's lost a lot of military unit population. He's not optimized his economy for, being in a long-term booming position. He's made shorter term decisions like shogunate and Japanese consulate, no TPs, things like that, that aren't going to have ramifications about his ability to age, his ability to continue to be ahead in economy, which translates into a larger military mass. And so there's a slight technological advantage. And as the cavalry continue to do a good job of running around the map and sieging shrines, I think Lemmings is okay. He's in an okay position.
Needs to be careful here. Might lose a couple of units if he doesn't react too quickly. One thing I wouldn't know about Lemmings is his shipment progression. I think is a bit odd. Especially in that fight, I feel like Cav combat would have done him quite well. Then the 3 dog soldiers, of course, is quite nice for Sue. But 2 dog soldiers? That's such a low economy shipment. I mean, apparently they cost 300 coin. They don't cost 300 coin. They cost like probably less than 300 coin. I'd say they're probably worth about 200 resources, 250 resources maybe. But actually, I mean, an H3 shipment, I mean, 5 axe riders has to be better than 2 dog soldiers, surely.
Yeah, I think you're right. And here's going to come the age up from Vic. He's going to age up with the Sugar Shrine. Again, not sure I like it, because although Sugar Shrine is good going into age 2, going into age 3, it doesn't give you any military units. Actually, I don't know if it doesn't give you military units.
It doesn't.
Age 2, but I don't think it does.
It gives you more export, I think.
It gives you more export.
It gives you like 600.
Yeah, makes sense. This presents a timing, though, that Lemmings needs to be aware of because Vic's military is really not that scary right now. If he were to group up all of his military and go fight, like this is the time that he needs to push. And I think Vic will be very happy if he doesn't push and he's able to age up and get some of those upgrades like veteran Yumi upgrades finished.
Actually, you know what? I don't mind the Shogushine here. Weirdly, I mean, you never see it going into age 2, but how much is a club? A club is 60 export here, so I mean it's slow obviously, but 10 clubs are probably Japan's without upgrades best anti-cav.
Yeah.
And if you were to Q1 now, get it in Q as he was going up, be able to get 11 clubs up or whatever, and then send intervention. That's an extra what? Intervention's 9 clubs. So, I mean, 20 clubs in front is probably as good as the same amount of Ashes. And although, as you said, he can get pushed in here with these rifle riders and this mass of other units. And he's even now transitioning onto that fire pit, which is where I think he's going to have his timing. But if he were able to get the sort of 10 clubs out or something, he now has one in queue. I don't know about noises. It's making the noise as if I'm clicking on something. 2 chariot, which is now coming in as well, which is going to be particularly bad for Mr. Swee here. But look how far away they are as well. This chariot place was insane.
And here comes the timing push. Here comes the military advancement from Lemmings, which is formidable. It's scary, especially with war dance on it. Let's see whether or not Vic can get any upgrades or get those clubs out to serve as the anti-cav that he needs in this next fight. No Minutemen available either this time.
He did get 10 clubs out here. No Minutemen, as you said, are available. He is going to get pushed in here with those clubs are ready to pop. They're just about to pop. Actually, the Yumi are in front. Discipline Yumi does come in straight away. And even going to use Vils to tank here. I think Victor knows he's on his last legs here. Some Yumi are behind, doing some damage, but these rifle riders do so well against heavy infantry. There's not enough Yumis here to really counter them, and the dog soldiers also do 40 damage times that 1.5 versus the Yumi, and they just get melted. GG coming in for Victor Swede, bringing the series to 2-2. So a nail biter here, coming down to the last game.
Yeah, totally. And in that particular timing is why I was wondering whether or not having the extra DPS and the extra units from Pavilion might have been better in that situation. Probably wouldn't have mattered just because I think the timing was scary enough. It probably doesn't necessarily matter just because of the dog soldier pop plus all the rifle riders. That's a big scary push from the Sioux player. But maybe would have had a better chance with the extra units and the extra DPS.
Yeah, and you can actually see the military units killed there. Victor Sweet only killing 34 units from Lemmings and Lemmings killing 123 of Victor Sweet. So definitely having a good fight there. And actually, even that first fight, even though it looked so good for Victor Sweet, he actually lost sort of the same amount of units. And a lot of those were Vils. If we look at the villager population graph here, Victor Sweet going down from 39 economic units there to actually only 25 and sort of on par with Lemmings there. Notably, Lemmings didn't utilise the TP, which is TPs, of course. I don't know if you know this. They do boost the gathering rate by 8% on villagers, and it's I forgot what now. Is it cumulative, where it scales off the stats which I already have?
Interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
But yeah, not utilising that is maybe a mistake. But actually winning that game, taking it to 2-2 in what we said earlier was quite a hard matchup. Victor Lemmings giving himself, I think, quite hard matchups. In that Aztec game, that Aztec India game, I think is probably slightly Aztec favoured. So really, I mean, Lemmings taking the hard games, and maybe Victor Sweet taking the hard games to himself even. So both players taking the games which you probably wouldn't expect them to take. I mean, the Bitmer as the first game actually, I guess, wasn't really that odd. But it is Victor's map and Victor's counter pick, which is actually really, really helpful. I mean, it's quite difficult to win a map win a game even when... Well, I'd say both these players are probably equal in skill or sort of the same sort of level in skill. Victor may be slightly better. You see he's 2 PR above there. But taking a game where you're getting counterpicked by a player who's roughly your skill level is really, really hard to do.
Yeah, totally. Truthfully, in that matchup, if Vic just goes if you go standard play, which when I say standard play, I mean like old standard play,
Yep.
so port consulate, 600 wood, 4-ville, just make shrines all over the map with Teshuga. I don't know. I don't know how Lemmings competes, especially with his straight FF build, which I think was a predetermined play that he was going for, regardless of what Vic would have done. Um, it seemed like a build order win there at that point, or maybe a build order loss.
Yeah. And I mean, it's quite nice to see a sort of funky build order. To me, that's Victor was sort of going for what I'd call a sort of an A's build order,
Yeah,
sort of a funky one. But Lemmings is to counter pick to pick first here on Arkansas, a map which is I think as standard as you can get. This is probably one of the most standard ESOC maps. You do of course have all the hunt at the top, or a decent amount of a hunt on the top, and about 3 TP line on the bottom. The Cherokee village sort of adorning the top there as well. Cherokee actually being quite a good nap to take. They have that full villager shipment, which is quite nice to get, as well as actually the Cherokee units themselves being quite strong. But I don't think we see that being used. We might see it being used, I don't know. But Lemmings is to pick here, which is it's quite difficult. I mean, Victor Sui is going to counter pick you, so you can't play a civ which gets counter picked by Victor's main civs, which is sort of, I mean, Japan's one of his main civs, I think. He's played Brit, he can't play Brit, and he can't play Aztec, but he can play India, can play China. Well, you said he didn't play much China. I don't really know what Victor's civs are. I know he plays Ottoman actually. So
yeah, he plays a lot of the older European civs, the vanilla civs, so Spain, Dutch. Not a big German player, but Otto he certainly plays. Um, French, which he's already played. Ports, which I'm not convinced he'll play. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play something like Dutch or Spain, something like that.
yeah, which would be really strong for him. But Lemmings, I said this earlier, he doesn't have a massive civ pool, but he does have a decent civ pool. We saw him play Iroquois being quite strong on this map. I think he can play China. I think he can play Brits again, which is actually his main civ. But again, you don't really want to play Brits because it's quite easy to counter pick Brits, especially with sort of an Iroquois pick or even an Ottoman pick or something, which does quite well versus Brits. But yeah, actually Brits coming in as I was saying about it. So Lemming sticking to his guns of his main civ here. And might actually be quite difficult for Sui to really do anything against this. I mean, Brits is quite an easy civ to counter pick. But at the same time, I mean, Lemming's obviously going in for his main civ here, so it's a civ he knows he thinks he's going to do the best with in this deciding match point. But yeah, Victor Sui to counter pick whatever civ he wants, civs he wants, except from France and British, which he can't play.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Vic pick something like Dutch or Spain. Let's see what he goes for.
Yeah, Dutch into Brits are interesting now. It's not a great matchup for actually it's Spain as well.
The civilization that you know well as well.
Yeah,
Maybe for some sort of kooky build order win or something like that.
he could Japan again. Japan's pretty good against, but at least it's I think it sort of was one of those 50-50 matchups. Some people say it's Japan favoured, some players say it's British favoured, but we'll have to wait and see. I think at least I think Victor plays Japan. I mean, the last game we saw maybe says otherwise. I don't know. Oh, someone just invited me. What the hell? So that's not a very good name, but yeah. Victor can pick anything he wants except from Brit and France. And you can see he's saying, what the hell, or WTF is this hacks. Now I can't play Brit, or I can't pick Brit. Obviously, he's maybe slightly annoyed there. He can't play his main civ versus... I mean, he already won the matchup, so it makes sense why he wouldn't play Brit.
Kaiser Clan has joined Sui Magic Clan. Just messaged me and said, please make me an officer. Told him that he's on a 6-year trial, so we'll see.
People's clans and stuff have been pretty funny, actually. People have been switching around. I was in Sui Magic for a bit. I'm now in, I think, Y-Leeb or something. Yeah. There was one called Tortoise or XYZH or something, which everyone joined for like a month and then left. Like Moto joined it, Kaiser joined it, I joined it, Callan joined it. Everyone who's sort of anyone joined it, and then just left afterwards. It became a meme for like a month, and then just ended. But yes, sweet to counterpick still. Can of course play Japan, which he just played, but I don't know what he's going to play. I don't know what he enjoys playing. No free Rex yet though, which is pretty disappointing. Ottoman coming in, which you could free Rex with.
Yeah, a 3 racks with auto as well. I don't know if there's a way that Ottoman could ever produce out of 3 racks, but it looks like it's going to be auto for Vic.
Which I think are quite strong versus Brit actually. I mean, if you go for early FF, you age up 4 Huss. You go for 8 Jan first, and go for Jan Huss and Falk timing. It's quite strong versus British. Obviously, Brit does. I'm gonna type O here. Join in. But yeah, I mean it's quite a difficult match for British to deal with here. Of course, you can even revolt, but I don't know if that's too good versus British at all. Someone asking what the score is. I will just reiterate. It is match point, which is 2-2. With Victor Sui actually taking the first game and the third game, so being on match point for 2 games here. Faltering with his Japan versus Lemmings Sue, but by the looks of it, we're going to get into it. And Victor Sui grinning in as Ottoman, so you heard Ottoman had 100% win rate. It's pretty funny, but actually, I mean, it's not a massive TP line, and Brit can take a TP line if they want to. So obviously, Ottoman sort of struggles if they can't take a TP line and hold on to it because their economy is so weak. But it should be quite interesting. You can also go for the what do they call the Cherokee and get an extra 4 villagers, which is about half your economy as Ottoman early. So
I wouldn't be surprised if Otto just goes for some sort of cheesy semi-FF though, with a TP or 2, sends 2 Falcons, kind of just rolls in with a bunch of Janissaries and 2 Falcons. That seems somewhat hard for Brit to stop, especially on a map like this where there's not a ton of in-base hunt, and you're going to have to expand out 8 or 9 minutes, which is precisely when Otto kind of wants to be pushing you as well. So we'll see what happens heading into game number 5.
So yeah, this is the lower bracket round of 16. So things are sort of heating up. Of course, anyone who's in the lower bracket either was seeded there to begin with, or were in the upper 36 and then were brought down. But there's some still strong names in the lower bracket, even so. Keister is the champion, not the champion. I don't want to call him a champion. The player that whoever wins this series has to go against. So it's going to be quite difficult for either of the players to go on to the semi-finals. But we might see Victor Sui in a final if he wins his match, which would be quite interesting to see actually.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I'd have to come back for another match. It sounds like.
Yeah, well, actually, we'll have to come back for another match, which maybe you can cast if you've got the time, Zuta, and maybe you can get interjection. And he hasn't been casting for a while, but I mean, I'm honoured to cast this game, but I think most people will see Zutajection back in form, maybe.
Yeah, I know he's busy with some other stuff right now too, so I don't know if he'll necessarily be available, but. I like. Was it you that called yourself the poor man's interjection, or someone else? That was pretty funny. That gave me a good chuckle.
I think it's an apt definition. I mean, I've been casting for a while now, but I mean, Will, I think is always sort of going to be the face of AoE casting, if you will. I mean, there's a lot of if you ever look at the the comment section of the he found his TP. Actually built it this time. But if you look at the comment section of YouTube videos, most of the time, or half the time at least, there's someone poking their head out and saying when is interjection coming back or whatever. I know he got a bit, I'd say overworked maybe. Obviously he was at Escape, did a lot of casting there, and maybe wants to take a nice deserved break, I'd say, and putting his head into other things. But yeah, it would be quite nice to see him coming back just to cast a single Victor Sui game. It would be pretty funny.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But for the time being, I guess we'll have to soldier on with just you and I.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
But as for the game, by the looks of it, Victor Sui did build his TP there, nice and early in age 1. Did also pick up 90 food there. and 40 corn. I quite like that. But Lemmings did pick up 80 food as well as 30 corn himself. So really, the treasure wise, about equal. Of course, did get. I don't know what start they got. By the looks of it, just a wood and food start. So the standard start there. So no mosque in base for Ottoman, but it does of course always get 300 wood at least to get that TP down. Having a look at the decks of Lemmings, Lemmings has a pretty standard deck here. Eight longbow in deck though. Not a card you see too often. It does have CM in there as well as actually all the cavalry upgrades in there, cavalry damage even, as well as cavalry hit points. Those two, that second card, cavalry damage, you sort of never see in a British deck. So that's quite peculiar.
You don't see it too much. Usually you'll see Musk HP or truthfully Team Musk HP.
Yeah.
Just because muskets tend to be a kind of bread and butter type unit. Also, I'm there with you on the 8 longbow shipment. Seems a little weird. Certainly, you can tell that the theme of this deck is one, he's probably planning on making cavalry at some point, which I think makes sense. If you're trying to either combat 2 falconet shipments or some sort of Jan Avis type combo. And he's maybe suggesting to us with his deck construction that he's looking to play an age 3 himself and hold pressure in the third age with the shipments that he has.
I don't know. I think you're just slower as British if you go into the third age, which is pretty poor. I mean, he doesn't have 600 coin in there either. Going for 700 food instead. Victor Sweet having 2 villagers forward here. Still possibility of a third Vax or 3 Vax coming up. You never know. But looking at his deck, Victor Sweet having some peculiar cards in there himself. Of course, as Ottoman, you have all the crates in H2. That's standard. Maybe not 600 food. That's a bit odd. But other than that, all the crates in there is pretty standard. Artillery hit points in there instead of artillery attack. That's also pretty standard. But having 4 settlers in an Ottoman deck, I don't know if that's an older sort of play style, or not a card that players have, but not a standard card. The same for 6 Sparhi there, not the most standard.
Yeah, I want to touch on the 4 settler shipment just because I think that's the one that is maybe the weirdest. So certainly in Fan Patch 1.2, which is a patch that Vic and I played a lot of, in that patch the villager cap it was much higher, the base villager cap. Of course, Ottoman needing to build a mosque and then research technology to allow them to build past 25 villagers is the standard cap. I believe it was bumped up to 35 villagers in Fan Patch 1.2. And so one of the reasons you don't see villager shipments that commonly is just because the crates and TP booming and a lack of villagers allows you to still have some economy while not needing to build that mosque to train that tech early in the game to allow you to keep producing the free villagers. In Fan Patch 1.2, that wasn't necessarily the case, but villagers were a little bit stronger in that scenario. So perhaps a relic from a bygone era, but I don't think we'll see him sending it unless the game gets super long into Age 2.
Gonna go for an artillery foundry and a stable. Again, I mean, right at the start of this series, I said that Victor beat me with this sort of early push, which is I mean, I've never seen another player go it. That's the reason why it surprised me so much. But actually, I think it might work. Simply because it's... I think what Victor Sweet's got is he's got the element of surprise. Although he's got to lose all these abbacies if he's not lucky, which is unfortunate. But he's got the element of surprise, which is, I think, the biggest thing he has, right?
Yeah.
Victor, no other player plays like him. I mean, you've got A's, who obviously is the king of surprises, right? But Victor, just because he's an older player, he's probably the only player, I think, except for maybe Sam, who still plays, but Sam, I think still, maybe he didn't play at the same time as Victor? I'm not entirely sure on the history.
At the same time, Sam doesn't really play auto. This is so Vic, of course, as the name would imply, is from Sweden. And the interesting thing is there's another old Swedish player named Challe, who played a lot of Ottoman and played this exact style of Ottoman. And people maybe don't know this or have forgotten, but Vic and Challe are friends in real life. They were close friends that went to school together. And so they actually have play styles that are very similar to each other. And this was a build that Challe used to always do, which was Hasebus. And it's good, as Vic's alluding to in chat, especially if If there's an infantry-based approach that the British player starts with, a lot of people will expect Jan Abus and start with longbows or musk longbow or something like that to try and deflect the early pressure. In that scenario, running into their base with 5 Abus and 5 Hussars is absolutely brutal for an early push. Certainly now there's going to have to be some adjustment for Victor coming into the mid game portion of this match where he knows that his opponent is making Hussars. The 5 Janissary shipment starts to round out the composition. He's got the 3 trading posts, which is going to help his mid game economy. But he's probably going to need to transition his composition a little bit to adapt to the Hussar start, especially now if he's looked at the deck and he sees how many Hussar upgrades are effectively in the deck. He's going to need to adapt.
And yeah, actually, I mean, Huss start is... I mean, obviously there's a reason why Lemmings went for it here. But, I mean, it's so random versus Ottoman. I think I would have to agree with Victor Sui here. Not really a start you sort of go for. I mean, now it's gonna be Abbas Huss versus Longbow Huss, which surely, I mean, actually, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's Janissaries in there and there's Abbas guns in there, so I don't know who wins this. But if Victor gets caught here, this is going to be sort of game over already. But thankfully for him, he gets away with it. Does have that TP line, so actually a hit on economy here as well, which is quite important.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned as well that when he did this build against you, it was in tournament, right? So maybe
no, it wasn't. It wasn't in the tournament.
Maybe Lemmings has done his homework though and watched some of Vic's other auto games. I'd be super surprised, honestly, if this is the first time Vic has done this, just because you were surprised by it, but to me it just looked like normal sweep play. So I'd be surprised if Lemmings maybe hadn't done his homework, anticipated this kind of build order start from Vic, and came up with his own anti build to try and combat the early Huss and Abus pressure.
It's always possible as well to sort of look on people's rated games if you're worried about a matchup of a player against a player even. Looking at sort of rated games, looking at what composition they go for, what they tend to do, is always an option. I mean, it's a bit min-maxing in terms of preparation, I'd say. But, I mean, if you want to win a tournament game, you do everything you can, basically. But you might have done that. Is that 600 coin coming in? So Victor Sui, no chance of aging now, really sent both his coin shipments, is what you really need. Abbas gun production is sort of ramping up here, but there's a lot of Hussars. There isn't any Huss HP in deck, and actually 5 pikes coming out as well. From Lemmings. I mean, this is the timing that Victor probably wants to push in here, I think. He's got so many Hussars, and he's also got that small containment of anti-cavalry units in those Janissaries, as well as those Abbas guns to snipe down some of those pikemen. And actually, there's not a lot of longbow here to take out the Jans, or take out even the Abbas.
Yeah, and how fitting is it that the player who's not Victor Sui is the one that's Sui hurting in his base? All of those decaying hunts are going to make this a vulnerability at some point that Vic can maybe abuse. The fact that the next hunt on this map tends to be a little bit further away. You can already see, more Sui hurting out here. The fact that that ultimately the Brit player is going to be constrained by food far earlier than the auto player is, especially when the auto player has the initiative. Could be scary if they're fighting on top of the third or fourth hunt here.
Yeah, and those villagers are now threatened. With Micro, I think Sui wins this easily. I mean, Abbas guns are pretty pathetic versus settlers. Actually, I mean, to put it into perspective, I played again versus Victor. We went heavy Abbas guns, and I pulled villagers, and I got an insane trade because of it. Because of course, I don't know why they have it. I don't know if it's always been there, but Abbas guns for some reason do a third of their damage versus settlers, which to me doesn't make any sense. But I guess it's there for a reason.
Yeah, it would be really really strong otherwise, just with the range of the unit. The fact that the animation of Abus guns allows them to kite really easily just because they instantly fire. They do the DPS at the start of their animation instead of the end of their animation, like a longbowman or a satin bow or Anna does. Makes them really easy to trade and kite. So they're also a siege unit. There's just some quirky things with Abus guns. The fact that they do siege damage, for example, is kind of just weird and makes the modifiers a little bit different in some ways as well. So, an interesting unit, a different unit for sure. Looks like Vic is maybe saving to age here. We can see his resources starting to stack up in a way that suggests maybe they'll age. Also, interestingly, has a Hussar stuck in a coin mine that's a bug as old as the game is, where units can get trapped in coin mines. So frantically trying to dig that Hussar out for the extra 200 resources worth of military population.
I think Vic's a bit annoyed here.
Yeah, it looks to be.
But he's going to get pushed.
Yeah, this is a good thing for Lemmings. This is basically the best time for him to push. Vic has just researched the next stage, or he did, and then he canceled it. Now he's done it again. And this is a good time. This is go time. This is ideally he wants to be able to siege down the artillery foundry before those upgrades can come in.
Yeah, going through a TP line here is a bit of a mistake. You do have a lot of siege there with the pikemen as well as the musketeers. Although Victor going for the scout. I don't know about this. Victor, obviously Ottoman tends to slow age normally, but you can fast age as Ottoman, right?
Yeah, you can.
And I think you want the upgrades in, don't you? Although he's going to get a massive raid here. This is huge. This raid's absolutely huge.
Really big raid. Britt noticed it a little bit late as well. Looks like he's going to get a couple villagers. He needs to be careful that he doesn't get trapped over here too. The rest of his infantry is along as well.
Victor just scouting it as well, which is actually huge. Scouted it about Explorer, scouted over units coming up, and we'll get up here along the top lines. One thing I'd like to see him do is actually just go for a bit of a fake, go back around, if you will. But he's going to get snared here, and I mean, this is going to be a good fight, surely, for Victor.
Yeah, I think it is. The infantry's still a long ways off. You can see Lemmings trying to
back off.
Back.
Bring some fuss back. I like this. Just a snare. We'll lose a couple, but that's not too bad. But he's going to be up in a second. Has a shipment to send, and I mean, if he can get enough resources for 5 Spahi, 5 Spahi will be actually insane at this point.
Yeah, he's actually almost got the resources needed to go to industrial age. I wonder if he's trying to
revolt
or something with all the Hussar that he has in queue and banked up. That would be a reasoning why you would maybe go scout, not only for the extra units but also for the extra time that it buys you, in terms of being able to have more units to help with your Hussar, but also it buys you that time to gather resources. If you're going to be sitting around gathering resources anyways because you're intending to go to the 4th age, that can be a reason, but I don't know if he's going to have time to revolt here. I think he's just going to get pushed in. Maybe he can run around for long enough with the Hussar, causing distractions, but I just don't see him getting both up to the 4th age and having enough resources stockpile in order to actually pull off the revolt.
I feel like you just you get in veteran Hussar here, you send 5 Spahi, and you clean. I mean, 5 Spahi, there's not a lot of anti-cav. If we look at military units, 10 pike, 11 musketeers isn't going to do too much. 1,000 coin now comes in. He is going to get up to the next stage. Hopefully, for his sake, he's going to go for 500 or 100 wood even next. But this has been scouted. I mean, that town centre is going to get circle siege. It's going to get a lot of damage on it. And Victor Sweet going to lose a lot of his economy here. Obviously, Lemmings is on low economy himself, but he's going to lose this. I reckon he needs to. Does he have a market up? He doesn't have a market, so he needs wood somewhere. Somehow to get wood to get in veteran house and maybe just to take the fight. It's not the greatest fight for him to take, of course. He is going to be industrial. What is he aging up with? That's pretty important. If he ages up with Spahi, it's good. The Grand Vizier, that is Spahi, but he's going to take a terrible fight here. I think this is going to be the end of the game for Mr. Victor Sweet.
Yeah, I don't know how you recover from this. I actually like your idea. I think if you just stayed age 3, got the upgrades, and sent the Spahi card, he was perfectly fine. He could have still long term gone to age 4, but now the point of going to age 4 is to have that big Hussar mass alive and be able to use those units effectively to revolt with. That's not going to be the case anymore. All of the Hussar are dead. I don't even think he can get the resources needed to get the revolt in time.
Yeah, he's going to age up. Again, I'm not entirely sure if that Grand Vizier is a Hussar or Spahi shipment, but again, I mean, it's not going to make a difference. 74 units here to Victor's pitiful amount of 12 economic unit population there, and 0 military unit population. He will get up at least, I guess, and those units will pop. It is 3 Spahi, which will do okay, but just, I don't know, imagine if that was like 5 Spahi in that fight and veteran Hussars. Victor would have just cleaned.
Yeah, he totally would have. And had veteran Hussar, right? Like, there's a lot of things that he would have going for him in that fight. But no, that's going to be the game. Vic has typed GG. Thanks for treating kids. Always a good sport about everything. Vic, one of those players who is win, lose, or draw, always going to have a good time playing. Always be a happy-go-lucky guy. You gotta give him some kudos for that.
Yeah. So actually, a really, really close series at the end there. 3-2 from 3-2 for Lemmings. He will go on to face Keister. So a really close series actually. 3-2 versus Victor is a good result, I feel. Again, I think Victor maybe was a slight favourite going into this, but obviously well played by Lemmings. Again, I mean, 5 Spahi plus the veteran Hussars in that fight would have done so well for Victor there, and it would have also been cheaper than aging to the 4th age. And yeah, pretty unfortunate for Victor, but not a huge amount he can do. But yeah, if you have a look at military unit population there, you can see but just having more units, not actually out-gathering a huge amount. You can see Victor actually had effectively the same economy for a decent chunk of the game up until about 7 minutes. It did fall off a little bit when he lost that TP, but yeah, not the best fight at the end there. And really, I mean, his decision to go to the Fortress Age I liked, but his decision to go directly try and get a revolt in I didn't like at all.
No, in looking at the military unit population, just looking at the at the flat line effectively of resources or of military units. Obviously, he's saving for the 4th age there. So imagine if he had just kept pushing the advantage, making more military units, and then had a fast age, meant he would have aged slightly faster, and then all of the upgrades for those units, especially veteran Huss, and then use those resources to do something like Sun Spahi, or even anything, right? Eight Janissaries would have even been probably pretty good. Would have definitely had a much better fight, a much better counter timing against the Brit kind of desperation push in H2.
He also sent three Huss at 10 minutes, which is when he aged. So yeah, you would have had 2 shipments. Basically 2 back-to-back shipments when he aged. I mean, aging with a scout was weird in itself, but I think it would have paid off anyway. I mean, 8 Jan coming in, or 5 Spahi, or even if he cobbled together enough resources for 4 Mamluk, those units just tanked so much that he would have been fine. But yeah, it is quite unfortunate there. Or even 2 Falcons, I don't know, anything would have done well except for 1,000 coin and trying to age. But yeah, as I said, Lemmings will go on to play Frontier